Hey everyone, so today I have another idea. This one is going to be sort of the opposite of what we just did. We just did torque, and now we're going to try and do high RPM. Somebody says, can you make a modern interpretation of the Mazda RX-7? And so I'm taking that idea, but instead I'm bringing us all the way back to 2002, and we're going to be making a high revving i3 RX7-ish car. So for that, I've chosen to go with the 1989 coupe. There's a long version and a short version. Short version just makes sense here. This one's more like an eagle talon kind of thing. So if we go to chassis, I think we'll go steel, monocoque, and then steel with a front longitudinal engine and probably just double wishbones all the way through. Now the engine is where things get interesting, because in order to get up to high RPM and automation, we need to be very specific with what we're doing. So we need these to be pretty closely aligned. So what we're going to do is lower down the bore and then lower down the stroke as well. And we want them to be pretty much like that's okay. So we're going to do a 1.3 liter just like the usual rotaries. When it comes to the engine itself, it's not going to be realistic. Like, the reality is there are no rotaries in this game, so all we can do is pretend. And so I'm just going to be jacking up like the highest RPM parts that we can get, and we'll have to see how it goes. So internals, same thing, just billet steel, lightweight titanium, lightweight forged, quality all the way up because we want to be able to live. Compression should be around here, and cam profile is probably going to end up going up. I am doing VVT. I mean, we probably don't actually need it, but I'm just going to slap it on there anyways. Now when it comes to turbo, I'm going for a fuel economy preset, so that means our turbo is like super tiny, and we'll leave it there for now. We'll definitely come back and adjust this. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I want to get around 300 horsepower. I know that the RX-7s had less than that, but just for the sake of this build, let's go for 300 horsepower. We don't want to go too crazy with it. We want to get up to that high RPM, and generally speaking, you can't have huge power and high RPM in this game, so we're sacrificing power for RPM. And the important part here, let's put RPM all the way up to 12,000. I don't know if we're actually going to get there in this first attempt, but we should be able to eventually. Alright, so right out of the gate we're having some issues. It is peaking at 6,800 RPM, and by the time it gets down here, it's actually still alive, so that's good. We're not experiencing valve float, and that means that we can work with what we've created here. So the first thing that we can do is go back to the top end and start to adjust the compression a little bit, as well as we're going to be needing to raise the cam profile. As you can see, this is probably one of the most important pieces. We got to raise that cam profile pretty much all the way up to race, and that puts us all the way up to 11,200 RPM, which is crazy. So in order to achieve our goals of reaching about 300 horsepower, we're going to have to double where we are right now while achieving the same RPM limit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whack up the compression just a little bit, and then we're going to get most of the rest of the power out of the turbo. So first thing we should check is what is restricting us. Currently the turbine and compressor are restricting us. So if we start to raise things up, you can see that the power is starting to build quite a bit. We're already up to 180 there, and we're gonna hit max air ratio. And now if we go up in boost as well, you can see the torque is rising and the power is dropping because we are knocking. Alright, so knocking is fine. We can fix that usually with a little bit more fuel. Also can put a little bit more timing into it. We're almost at 200 horsepower, so we're getting there. We might have to jump up to ultimate fuel as well. We'll have to see. Okay, so I'm raising the compressor size and we are gaining a ton of power. It's starting to slow, which means our intercooler needs to be boosted. So we're up to 250. I'm going to raise that up 2 notches. Okay, I jumped us up to ultimate fuel, and I'm going to have to detune it, I guess, to get it down. But just with the intercooler, we are making it really close. Our exhaust is still good. We haven't touched it yet. If we raise that up a bit, we can get a touch more power. Alright, I was having some trouble with this, and then I realized I hadn't switched it to ball bearing. Like, it's so dumb. But anyway, we're up to 274 horsepower. We finally got the RPM that I'm actually going for. We're up to 10,800 RPM red line, which is really quite nice. And we should be able to squeak a lot more out of it just by... oh yeah, goodness. So we're up to 310. And you know what? Just for the sake of the build, I'm going to leave it there. Now, I know that we could get more out of this, but I just feel that it's necessary. I mean, we could just drop down the RPMs as well. We can lower the RPM limit and save the pistons, but it just doesn't seem right. I mean, we're capping out at 10.5. We may as well go all the way up to at least 11. We can go up to 12 and not have any issues, so let's do it. Alright, so here is the body we're going to be using. Now, for styling, I'm just going to go RX7-esque. It's not going to be very realistic, and by that I mean it's not going to be realistic at all. We are going to use some of the same styling cues from the car, but we're going to try our own things and just see what we can do. Now this does have 300 horsepower, so I'm widening out the wheel wells just a little bit because we're going to need it. And I think that's going to be it for body moving. Now when it comes to paint, I always am tempted to paint my cars white, black, red, or green. And I don't know why. I mean, you can see some of the colors in here, or some of the previous stream colors. I have no idea what I should make this. And look at that, we've made our own ember. Alright, I've decided to go with this blue instead. I don't want to copy consider right out, so we'll go with that. And I think it's going to look good with some, like, just steel wheels as well. We'll go black trim, steel wheels. That's a nice stock look for this car. I like it. Alright, when it comes to fixtures, you could already see I've got something up here because I was testing this out earlier. We need a spoiler that represents the early 2000s perfectly, and I think we've got it. What do you think of that? It's a little too tall for me, but I think I'm going to keep it just for the spirit of the car. So when it comes to styling, we have to decide, are we going Need for Speed Underground style, or are we just going for a stock look? And I'm honestly not sure. Maybe somewhere in between. Now one thing we absolutely need are pop-ups, but I'm going to leave them down because I like that stealthy look. So I've given the front end a bit of a makeover, and it's not the prettiest yet, but I decided to slap a big lip on it, so I think we're going to be doing like a ground effects kit, but something that's custom. We could go wide body, but well, we'll save that for another day. So I've really just kind of been letting the creativity flow here, and I think I've come up with something pretty decent, or at least like a good starting point. There's still a bunch of work left to do, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. I've actually put license plates on this time, which is, I mean, that's a miracle in itself. I actually remembered how to do that. But I've gone for this ground effects kit, got these nice, well, they're essentially supposed to be lips, but I've put them all around the front and a little bit at the back. What I'm going to try and do is put one here. Hopefully that works. I mean, it would be great if we could do fenders as well. It would be sweet to have like bolt-on like kits and things, but I don't think we're there yet in the development of this game, so we'll just have to make our own. But I'm having a lot of fun doing it, so this is definitely worth it. Sadly, it seems my dreams of having a full round body kit are just not gonna fly. It does not want to put that little lip here, but it was a hope. Whenever I make a car that I actually like the look of, like I think that this car just looks good now. Like this is a decent looking car. I struggle so heavily on the back because now it looks like a Nissan. Okay, I know that this isn't RX7-esque, but this is me taking some design liberties here, and I'm liking the way that it's going. We've made something I can actually be proud of. Hey, look at that. It's actually decent. I can't believe it. Okay, we need to name this thing, and now that is going to be a challenge. So as you may have seen, I put a triangle up front as an homage to its past, or at least what it's attempting to replicate, but we need to name it. I don't want to just like use JX8 or whatever. I want to do something a little bit more unique than that. So let's see here. Okay, so I think that this is it. I've called it the Trig X, and the brand name is going to be Trig, so it's the Trig X. And I think that makes sense, kind of like Mazda and Mazda Speed. So the X is for RX because it's inspired by that, and Trig is triangle. So I think that's pretty much it. This is what it's going to be looking like. I've actually named the engine this time, so for those of you who are wondering, yes, we can swap this engine into something. Hint of what we're going to be doing next week. So yeah, that's it for styling. Moving on to drivetrain, it's going to be rear-wheel drive, manual, 5-speed. Looks like it can get up to 292 k's an hour. Now one thing I want to do is get up the spacing quite a bit. We want acceleration because this car isn't going to be particularly fast. One thing I also want to do is put an LSD in it. Wheel spin is constantly an issue for these vehicles that I make. Yeah, we need to fix that somehow. Let's go sport compound, and we're going to need some big back wheels. That's just the reality of things here. We can maybe bring those down to like 225, and we'll bring these up to maybe 215. Let's go alloy rims as well. And these quality sliders are not going to be up at all. So we'll put vented discs on the front, but we'll put solid discs on the back. I hope that this car actually has decent brakes. It's always a bit of a hope. We'll just crank up the brakes and we'll fix it as the game says. It's probably going to complain at some point. Okay, semi-clad. We do need some downforce. We'll have to mess with that in a bit. And we'll put up brake airflow just a little bit as well. No back seats because why not? I'm just doing basic and no entertainment for all of the cars this season. I think that just makes the most sense to keep it consistent. I do hydraulic power steering on cars because the game complains otherwise, but we're not going to do any traction aids. So suspension is something that we can just, like, we can take a good car like this one, like it seems like it's going to be pretty decent, and then we could just screw it up here. So we have to be careful. What we want to do, I mean, we could go, I think we're going to go standard, and I think we're going to go adaptive standard as well, with semi-active sway bars actually. So our drivability is 87%, our sportiness is actually good. Downforce at the rear is good, downforce at the front is not, we'll have to fix that. And we're actually able to get to 60 miles an hour, or 100 kilometers an hour in 4.2 seconds, so not bad. Some adjustment is necessary though, as wheel spin issues, who would have thought? Alright, so first things first with the wheel spin issues, we could switch to semi-slicks. Let's do that. That should help a little bit. Let's just make sure, so it's 100% wheel spin in first gear. The spacing might be too high. We can probably lower that down to 60, and we'll raise up the size of the back wheels. So that seems to have fixed it. 97% wheel spin. What? And now it's not an error? Alright, I'll take it. So for the first time pretty much ever, the game has no problem with the brakes that I've chosen. The car is probably really light. Let's move over here. Yeah, it's only 1,000 kilos, so this is quite a light car. It seems like we've actually made something that's decent. Yeah, how is this possible? Okay, so front and rear dampers are hard, and wheel spin, yeah, okay, I'm gonna mess with that in a second, but everything else is looking okay. So our drivability goes up when we shrink the size of the front tires, but our sportiness goes down considerably. So we kind of have to find a balance there. Like if we crank the tires up here, we can hit 99.3 sportiness, but our drivability goes down. Not exactly sure why that is. It's unfortunate that the front is not cooperating, but I think we're just going to leave it. We should be good on all of these fronts. Maybe. We're down to 4.0 seconds. So as long as we get the gearing right, which I just messed with it a little bit, so we lost a touch of top speed, but that doesn't matter. And that should bring down our wheel spin issues. I mean, if we drop the spacing, we're going to lose wheel spin issues as well. I don't want to drop it too low because this is supposed to be a sports car. So it's got to be quick. As a compromise, we're going 50 spacing. We'll stick with the geared LSD. I mean, we could go electric, but we'll go geared LSD. Maybe just raise the quality of this just a little bit. I'm not going to mess with the dampers or anything. The race preset has been good to me in the past, so yeah, that's it. Let's export this thing to Beam and take it around some circuits and see how good it is. So when making this, I kind of figured that we'd end up with something typical of me where it kind of becomes a disaster and just something that you generally wouldn't actually want to drive. But I am pleasantly surprised to say that the Trig X is incredibly good. The reason I say that is because, despite what the game said, it barely has any wheel spin at all, other than when you get a little crazy with it, and it just generally drives well, which is a surprise considering most of the cars that I make. Maybe it's just me. But just cruising around the neighborhood in this, no problem at all. Like, okay, well, I wasn't having any problems before, but apparently now I am. Yeah, so getting up to 12,000 RPM, definitely a good idea. I was gonna try and cap this thing around 10 or 11, but it's worth it to go all the way up to 12. I like it a lot. It sort of, like, considers Ember, but it's got a 12k RPM i3. And my goodness, it can do burnouts for days. I really think that this is one of the best looking cars I've made, and it's probably one of the best driving ones as well. It's not going to compete with the Vimero when it comes to speed, but it's just a decent car all around. It's something that's worthy of the RX7 name, I think. As we cruise on down the highway, you can see that it can actually pick up some reasonable speed as well. I know we're driving on the wrong side of the motorway, but don't worry about it. but we can get all the way up to like 200-ish before we inevitably explode. It'll be interesting to see where this falls in the lap time when it comes to the Vomero and such. I'm very interested to see how that car will do specifically, because we haven't run it on the new track yet. So I think probably after this episode I'll do that, and then by the time the next episode comes out you'll be able to... Goodness, the frame rate is not good. You'll be able to see the results of the Vomero 3.0 and the Brodozer 2.0 on the leaderboard for the next video. Ooh, okay. It's a little bit harder to drive than I thought, but I think I'm still going to be able to take it around the track relatively quick. It just feels good though, even after crashing it. So now seems like a good time to just take it to the track. Let's take it there pretty quick and see what we can do with it. I'm going to have to practice a little bit, I feel, but this is going to be a very quick lap time. Definitely quicker than the last one. Alright, for those of you unfamiliar, or whoever did not watch the last video, the Tree Turbo is currently in first place because it's the only time on the board with a time of 1 minute and 41 seconds. This is the Hirochi Raceway medium race circuit, 1 lap, and let's see what we can do with the Trig X. Alright, this is my first time on the circuit with this car, so hopefully it goes okay. I mean, I'm not expecting to finish this lap as, well, generally speaking my driving doesn't allow for that, but we can try. Ooh, wow, we can be really aggressive with this car. You just have to be confident, I would say. You just have to hold down the gas through the corners. It can hit these apexes pretty well and kind of spin out as well. Oh no, okay. Alright, alright. I get the point. Now the Hirochi Raceway has quite a few fast corners, but it also has a lot of corners that require a lot more technical precision. And I want to be a good balance, I want to be within a good balance of both of those things. So with this car, it's pretty easy because you can pretty much hit the throttle. But when it comes to these slower corners, like, I've got to be careful, especially this chicane up here. It's not as careful as some of the cars I've had to drive, but as you can see, my carefulness is not paying off. It's just going well so far. Right as I say that, I hit a wall. Goodness. Alright. I should not speak so soon. Alright, so we made it through the first section here, and we're coming up to this technical piece again. And we are definitely going off into the sand once again. I mean, the reality is this run is probably not going to... Yeah, did not count. Alright, we finally made it past that part. Goodness, that was causing some issues. But we're almost done with this lap. This has actually been a really good lap so far. Gotta slow down here. I always forget to. That is a much slower corner than it appears. Come on back around there, car, let's go. Now, one thing that you miss whenever I'm making these videos, because I always edit it out, is the times that I fail over and over again around one specific corner. And that past corner over there, I have failed around it like 8 times, and this one only once. Alright, here we go. This is the lap right here. We're coming around the last couple corners. We should be able to just slalom this all the way home. Oh, okay, come on. Change that gear. Here we go. Let's not fail around the last corner again. Oh, come on, car. And then we'll just hit it. This is going to be a very fast lap, I hope. I really hope so. Okay, what is that? 137.495. So that puts it a pretty healthy distance in front of the... Goodness, I forgot what its name is already. The Tree Turbo. So that's it for this video, as we crash right into the wall back there. That was a pretty good run, and I really feel that this is a strong car. Overall, it's just good. It's well balanced, it's got good power, the RPM is really fun, and I think that it's probably one of the best cars I have made. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and yeah, I'm going to keep making videos like this, so be sure to subscribe and stick around. So for those of you who are interested, this car will be available in the description. You can check out the Google Drive, you can download the car there and modify it for yourself, try and get 500 horsepower out of this engine or something if you want to. But that's going to be it for today. I'll see you in a few more with something different.